Oh, it's great to be here again. And I wanted to share with you, Michelle, some of the things I'm doing. I have a channeling this Sunday night, and then also Freedom from Anxiety, going deeper in self love, and connecting with the guides. And all of those will be up on my website, thecenterforthesoul.com. And I know that you have lifeguides.com or your website, so I wanted to be sure that everybody heard about that. And then we were going to start talking today about these times with COVID-19 and what the virus is bringing up and bringing out for us. So, what is it that you're feeling about that? I just wanted to get your take on it.
And I feel like these times are really highlighting the significance and the importance of asserting the influence over the things that we can have an influence over, and how transformative that is, in that it can shift this time from being like the most stressful, most awful, terrible thing into a great gift and a great opportunity, and to understand how to make that change and how to make that transition is really quite important, because we don't want to go down the spiral of negative thinking and negative emotions and all of the things that they can do.
Yeah. Well, it's clearly a time that all of our spiritual practice that we've done over the last many years is here now to help us absolutely in this moment when the whole world is in crisis at the same time. You know, we are in a what isn't the appearance of a crisis, but we also know it's temporary, and so there is an end to the tunnel. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And the gift of it for me is my added creativity. I'm painting, I'm writing more, I'm, taking other classes. And then I'm also just like, receiving clients and supporting them as best I can. And then also feeling grace. This is a time to really open and feel the grace that's all around us all the time. And I think we miss it because most of us are too busy. We're running around like chickens.
Doing.
And doing, yeah, and not human being, but human doing.
Yes, we're doing. Now we're not doing so much. We can be
Yeah,
a bit.
yeah.
And I think that is a great gift. One of the things, and I don't know if we've touched on this or not, but one of the things that has uh, been exposed for me in my personal journey, I know that I'm on a 6 chakra path. I know that that's the path of intuition. It's the path of balancing the intellect with the intuition so that we can arrive at a place of wisdom. And I'm a 6. I'm on a 6 path, and because I do intuitive work, but I feel like it's really important, even inside intuitive sessions, to be able to marry that with a nice dose of intellectual information so that there's wisdom in how the messages are communicated. And I know that you are educated, and you pursue knowledge and intuition sort of in equal measure, and creativity, because that's how we can best be balanced. So what's come up for me is this interest in information. So there's information that we're getting exposed to every day, the numbers and the mask situation and the logistical problems with the health system, and there's a lot of information.
And the big curve. the
Yeah,
curve. Are we flattening the curve?
flattening the curve. And what just struck me as a 6, most likely, is that I'm interested in actually looking at the information, listening to what the communications are that are coming in mainstream media. But it's also important to me not to be just solely focused on one stream of information. I like to open up so I can explore the whole spectrum of alternative information, and some of that has been very hard to look at and hard to digest. But I do feel like it's important to not lose sight of the fact that there's more than one storyline and more than one possibility of information. And I feel like it's really important to weave all of those pieces through until you receive and can feel truth, or what feels like truth, or what feels like wisdom, and really allow it to all come in. And I was a little disturbed. I was watching the 6 o'clock news on TV. I don't know what channel it was. But they were saying that, there's all this nonsense out there about G5 and how G5 isn't the problem and it's not connected to G5. And what they're going to do is censor that information so you can expect not to be able to find it on Facebook or on YouTube. And that really, why aren't we allowed to listen to all of the information? And I don't know where you are on that whole journey and what you do to, manage all of that and stay sane inside all of that situation.
Right. I think that G5, in my opinion, is bad just anyway. Energetically, it's very bad. There's tons of information, tons of proof on the effect of electromagnetic frequencies on our bodies. It's already been proven that it's bad. Okay, just electricity, just the cell phone usage we have right now is bad enough. Okay, and it does harm our immunity. It creates cancer. It creates all kinds of stuff. So we already know that. That's already proven. It's scientific journals. You just have to go to the journals and take a look at it. But what's not known, and the thing that's scary right now, is that 5G is like 10 times what we already have. So, and it's going to mean towers, every other house. So we don't need that. We don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that around me. And it is lowering people's immunity. So that is a fact. Just forget about the virus.
Right.
The fact that Wuhan was the epicenter of the virus, and it's also the epicenter of a 5G rollout, it's understandable how those two can be put together. So,
and isn't it also a center where they do, they create in the lab don't they have one of those labs down there where they create diseases?
At the university in Wuhan, they also had a scientist who supposedly was already studying here in the U.S. with the guy who's now the Surgeon General, who's giving us all this information, and they were talking about and working on super viruses. So one of the streams of thought is that the super virus was taken to Wuhan and it somehow got out of the lab, and that's how we have this terrible pandemic. Now, scientifically, there's also conflicting information, because the scientific journals say, no, this developed naturally. And it could have developed naturally, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's wrong. But what is wrong is, to me, is blocking information about it. So, wait a minute, why don't we research this? Why don't we take a look at it and look at 5G and research 5G, because 5G should be looked at before it's rolled out and damages people's immune systems irreparably. It can harm people. It creates MS. It creates all kinds of stuff, and they're thinking that it can, all these autoimmune diseases that are already out there in the world, which have developed more fervently over the last 40 years since cell phones have been in use and the computers have been in use. There's a lot of evidence that this stuff is not safe, and we need to roll it out only with really good documentation to see if it actually isn't going to harm people. People already know that cell phones aren't good for you, which is why most people, talk out here with it. I'm always talking through the speaker. I'm very rarely ever having it to my ear. So I think it's important for us to take in that information, take it with a grain of salt, and look at it, and then also look at the sources and examine the sources, and then also to pay attention to what that does to us. Because if we look at what it does to us, is it helping us? Is it throwing us off center? Is it giving us? Is it helping us buy into fear-based conspiracy theories? There is something to electromagnetic frequencies. It's already been proven. We don't have to prove any more about that. We haven't seen what 5G can do, and that's the concern, because it's so much more powerful than 4G, which is already rolled out without anyone's permission. It just gets rolled out. Like, who's doing that? That's what makes me upset.
Yeah, it makes me upset too, and it makes me wonder, where is the debate?
Right.
Where is the intelligent excavation of truth?
Right.
And let's put this question and this side of the question, and then the opposite side of the question.
Right.
So at least we can each come to our own truth, or our own decision about what we integrate as truth.
Right.
So, both you and I work in the energy world.
Right. We're in the opposite end of things. We're in we don't have to prove what works. We know what works. And we practice that. So
from your point of view, I'll talk about from my point of view first, and then you jump in with what you know about it and what your truth and what your experience is of that. I'm interested in helping people have an intelligent and skillful relationship with their own energetic system, so that they can have an influence on the strength of it and the health and the vibrancy and the flow of energy through their system. And that way we can be fortified in the face of these onslaughts that are coming at us. And I think it's inside that terrain that going forward we're going to really need to be intelligent and skillful, because this is the place where we're getting impacted, not only within the energetic system, but also emotionally. When we're in high stress, and when we're, pushed down by losing control over the things that we really are used to having control over. It's very interesting to notice how that happens. And I take my energetic health very, very seriously, and I'm a practitioner, and I do things every day to really reinforce the strengthening of that system. And then I've noticed a couple of days this week, I think particularly Saturday, like I woke up on Saturday morning and I felt like I'd had 2 bottles of wine. I hadn't even had a single drink, but my energy field was so, I felt bombarded, and I felt like, as I say, like I had a huge hangover and I couldn't get through it. And I'm a consistent practitioner, and I have tools, and I work with tools all the time to bring me back to a place of strength. That on Saturday it was really hard for me to get there, and obviously some days are harder than others. I feel now the energy's lifted somehow, and I'm not at the receiving end of that, but I can only imagine if you're not a practitioner, you don't have those tools, that you might think that you're sick, or you might think that, there's something, you ate something the night before, or there's some physical cause to the way that you're feeling. And I feel really motivated to support the understanding of what that experience is, what it feels like to have an energetic hangover, what it feels like to be energetically suppressed and compressed and contracted. Because very often I can check in with myself and think, I'm fine, I'm pretty good, I'm moving through my day. But then if I lie down on the mat, or if I go into a deeper investigation, my jaw's tight, or my belly's contracted, or my heart's contracted. And then I can, once I've noticed it, I can unravel those contractions and bring it back to a more expanded space, and then realize, I guess I wasn't really feeling good before, because now I'm actually feeling good. So my point is that we can be impacted and not even necessarily be aware of it, but our body knows, and our body's kind of in that war zone, or it's in that battlefield all the time. And so being sensitized is a good thing. People might think it's good not to be feeling anything. It's better, but you don't want to be numb and not sensitized to your own system, but you don't want to be overly sensitized so that you can't function in everyday life. And it's an interesting journey to find the balance in those things. So, that's probably, I'll say it, it's why I'm sharing my tools right now to support that understanding of what it feels to feel really connected, really, relaxed and in your parasympathetic relaxation response rather than an adrenalized response, because we can get habituated to certain ways of feeling that aren't our highest or best feeling. So there, I said a lot there. I want to give you a chance to share what you think and feel about all of that.
Well, I think that it's a constant vigilance of checking our energy fields. So I was just, sitting the other day, and all of a sudden I noticed all this dark energy that was swirling around my feet. Now, in my own field, I was fine, but it was as if the collective was trying to kind of worm its way in. And so I just said, I established my own field, like as imagining a tube of light over me and really sealing on the earth. And then I just pushed that energy out of my house. And I got some sage and I smudged, and I was able to take some incense and put it around, and then just send love to it, and it just recedes like a tidal wave, like just go a backwards tidal wave. It just went out. And also, when you do that, what I'm finding is that I'm impacting with a wave of love. If I establish the love in myself, I'm sending out a wave of love to all that collective fear, which actually dissolves it.
Yeah.
So if we can dissolve our own fear first, and then we become a beacon of light, and that is what a light worker is. It's a beacon of light that's here to help send light to those that are stressed, and giving credence, giving movement to the fear and allowing it to dissolve, because I just stand in the knowledge and the experience that love is stronger than all of it. So the more that we can be love, be in our being, which is what I think we're being called to do. Be the love that you are right now. Don't go anywhere else. Just stay home. Be in that, and then we can feel that we are sending it out into the world. Also, I think prayer is really important. My prayer list is doubled in the last week or so. I have a prayer list by my altar, and I go through it all, and I pray for all these people. And then all of a sudden, this whole family has got COVID-19 over in New York State, and one woman lives here, and all her family's in the East Coast, and the whole family's sick. Her sister, her brother-in-law, her all the kids in the family, 3 little kids, plus her brother. And her brother worked with homeless people in New York City. Well, God bless him, he doesn't need to be sick right now. He needs the opposite. So I just sat and prayed for him, and I could see over the days he energetically, I would just check in on him, and he was sitting up, and he's getting better. But those prayers are very powerful, and the more that we can pray for people. Another friend of mine just said her father died in LA. He was in a nursing facility. So we have to just keep praying and know that those prayers are really powerful, and they're really effective right now. I mean, they're always effective, but I see meditation as a way to listen to the divine and our guides, and prayer is a way to talk. So it's our constant conversation, the prayer and meditation, that helps us lift this world to a better place.
Yeah, and I think that it's thank God that science is catching up with our woo-woo ways.
No kidding.
So that now it's been demonstrated that, if you occupy love, if you elevate your frequency, your internal, emotional, energetic frequency to love or above, you're sending messages to your cells to thrive and to multiply. And when we sit in negative emotional vibrations, we're sending the opposite message to our cells, which we don't want to be doing that right now. And we never really want to be doing that.
Right.
And as we do it individually, as we each do it individually and have that vigilance, as you say, over what is happening in my system. There's the 8 verses trail in the land of the medicine Buddha, and they say to notice the first moment of a discursive thought or a discursive emotion, because if we can catch it right in that very, very first moment, an emotion actually takes 90 seconds to run through an unobstructed system. An energetically healthy and vibrant, chronically alive system, an emotion runs through it in 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. And the thing that slows that down or stops it, there's 2 things. Either we're not open, we're contracted energetically, or we have a thought that perpetuates an emotion. And so sitting inside a negative emotion isn't beneficial. Mm-hmm. It's beneficial to allow whatever is arising within our system. And I've discovered in that act of listening and allowing, those energetic movements can carry some real intuitive information with them. And even fear, it can carry a message, look out for, or watch out for, or be aware of, or notice more of. And those messages are valuable for that minute and a half that they run through your system. They are valuable, but it's not valuable to stew in that juice and perpetuate that emotion and that energetic experience, because it just does harm. And we can't allow or facilitate any more harm in our system. So I like to meet those lower vibrations with the skillful means that are capable of transmuting them into the opposite, positive, higher vibration, so that we're nourishing ourselves with the gift of a high frequency vibration and a fluid, flowing energetic system, so that we can reside in a place of inner peace and inner equanimity, which is actually the opposite to anxiety. Right. And I know you're teaching that this week, and I'm also teaching that in my yoga series. I'm up to the 3rd energy center, the Manipura, which is where anxiety circulates, and when we meet it with skillful means, it transmutes into inner peace and inner equanimity. And I do feel like it's each of our, I actually feel like it's our responsibility at this time to practice and acquire the skills and to take care of our own energetic system, because that contributes to the collective. And I believe, honestly, that we're connected in a network of energy, like trees are connected in their root system. Right. And as we all rise together, it makes a difference, and it brings the light into the shadow, and it allows it to be stronger than the shadow.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to hear that it takes 90 seconds for an emotion to evolve from a thought. And the thoughts, that I totally agree with that if we can check those thoughts, I think of anxiety like a treadmill. It's like a rat wheel. And if you've ever had a hamster or a pet rat or pet mouse or something, you notice that they love to just get on those wheels and go for it. And that's the way that anxiety circulates in the brain. And so if we can cut that loop, cut that thread, and stopping it before it gets to the 90 seconds of our emotional body, that's a really helpful thought, because I think we need tools to stop those cycles, and also cycles of worry. There's, my kind of, the way I kind of feel is I don't worry about things I can't control. And that's part of the 12-step, messages, is that, can't control the things. You just, it's a serenity prayer, basically. I can't control the things that are outside of my purview. I can only be with myself and change the things in here. So if you cut those loops of anxiety, you can stop the treadmill and say, wow, that was just a trip I was on, and I don't have to go there. And then if you stop it even before and recognize when it begins, one of the methods I like to use is a big cancel sign, like the old stamps that they used to have for bills and stuff. It just says cancel in red, and you just cancel over the thought and put cancel, 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 and that just stops the thought right away. So yeah. I love the fact that I can use the imagination, and that the imagination can be used by anybody, because anyone can visualize that cancel stamp going over the thought. And you can also imagine cutting the loop, cutting that wire. I think of it like a rubber treadmill. So I just cut the rubber.
Yeah.
And then put it in the fire so it's burning up, and it's no longer it doesn't have to be part of your thought process. So yeah, I think that's what we're doing here, is giving people tools to help themselves through this time.
Yeah, what I do with those things, when I notice them, sometimes I can be 5 or 10 minutes in a loop before I've even noticed
right.
I'm in a loop. I'll suddenly sit down and like, why don't I feel great? And I've just been worrying over something that might or might not ever happen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Most of the things that you worry about don't ever happen. And so what I do is not me, not mine. That's not me. That's not mine. I'm not choosing that. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like it is the skill of our time to be powerful in what we are allowing inside our sacred system. This is our sacred ground. This is our home. This body is our home in this lifetime.
Right.
And really being good to that and good to me is not selfish. It's not self-indulgent. It's not, you think too much of yourself. It's really the most generous thing that you can do is to take care of this, so then you can offer out what you have within you that is a spark of the divine. Mm-hmm. It can't find its way out if it's squashed underneath a pile of worry about a pile of things that may never happen.
Right.
And I know that a lot of people in our world, or in my world, kind of get accused of spiritual bypassing. That's spiritual bypassing, and I think that it's not. I think that what's actually truly spiritual is to take responsibility for your connection to your divinity, and to keep an access open to that channel so that you can share it and you can give it out. Otherwise, we're a burden to each other, and I don't feel like any of us really want to be that. I think what we want to be is well, and we want to be a contributor, and we want to be the best version of ourselves. And I feel like these skills and these tools is the key to be able to get into that, and we've had conversations in the past that we know, like, if everybody knew what was possible in understanding the things that we understand, or working with us in some way, or doing a class or doing a training, they would all want to do it, because we all want the outcome.
Right.
We all want that benefit, to feel well and to feel good and to be skillful and responsible for our own energy and our own wellness. But there's such a lot of disbelief, there's such a lot of disbelief out there that either it's really possible or that we can really do it, or kind of like a disinclination to want to do it. And it's been hard for me to really understand what that's about. What do you think? What's that about?
Oh, I think I've been reading this old book on mediumship. That was, I have it somewhere. I don't think it's downstairs, but it's an old book that by Karnak. Remember him? I mean, he was like, when I was a teenager, Karnak was this big medium that had written all these books back at the turn of the century, and so. He, like many others at that time, Alice Bailey and a number of others, mediums and psychics, had put out all this material, and I read some of it. But anyway, I've been reading this old book. It was written probably around the turn of the century, last century, and he talks about different kinds of people's consciousness. And this is something I never look into because I try not to judge people. But from his point of view, he's saying there are those that are interested in God and are interested in spirituality. There are those who then will practice spirituality. And then there are those that are skeptical. And to the skeptical people, they could be broken into several categories. One is those that are just, nothing exists except what you can touch. It's one form of skepticism. Another form of skepticism is, well, I'll entertain the idea that there might be something after this life, but I can't prove it, so therefore I'm just not going to pay attention to it. And then there's a third kind of skeptic who says, yes, I want things proven, but I do know that, there is a life after death, and I'm willing to entertain that much. So I think people have different views depending on how they, what's true for them. And I also think it's different stages of evolution. It's obvious to me, without a doubt, that there's so much more than this physical world. But I've been looking at it and seeing the auras around things since I was a little tiny kid. So to me, it's just a fact. It's just what is. And my family saw auras, my mother and my grandmother and my grandfather, so, and then the other part of my family was very religious. They were Baptists, so my grandpa and my grandma, and they were Lutherans, so they were very religious, and you didn't swear, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do that. You didn't drink, very strict. And so that's the environment I grew up. One side, metaphysical people, Christian Science, and the other side, Lutheran and Baptist. So the influence I had was to see the spectrum of religiosity. And for me, what was important was the spirit. It's always been the heart. And I've also questioned why God wasn't a woman. Why didn't they have God represented as a woman? As Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Well, those were all assumed to be male. So when I ran into the Native American tradition, which is Father, Mother, there's Great Spirit, and then there's Mother Earth, and she is the Divine Mother, and Star Woman is Divine Mother, and so God is all of the sexes. It's all of the different spectrums, and that to me really felt true to me and my heart. So I think probably when I was in my 20s, I decided that heart was what was the most important thing, because that's where it all came together. So for me, I think that they're just different kinds of people. And what we're all getting at this time, though, is a lightning course in get your act together with spirit. Or you're not going to make it.
I think that that's true.
Yeah,
and I also feel, I'm an optimist. I wrote my little book about happiness.
Yeah.
But I do feel that, and I follow Greg Braden and his work, and I and a couple of others who have pointed to this time in history being a really significant time in history where we are going to confront this question of who are we, and what are we doing here?
Right.
And what have we done here so far, and what do we want to do here going forward? And I do feel like this is a critical time frame for those questions to be confronted in everybody's individual world, in their own individual ways. And I feel quite optimistic that that opens up the door for a lot of people who may be, sitting on the fence or have been somewhat interested but not entirely diving into that space to feel invited to explore a little bit further, or to find out a little bit more about what that space is about, and to demystify it.
Right.
Demystify the mystical, it's like, have it be a normal part of our experience of life.
Yeah.
To cultivate a relationship with our energetic system. And I know that you've got your Ph.D. in energy medicine, so you're committed to that path, and you've also got your book Heart Path, that's an expression of your commitment to what you just expressed, your understanding that the heart is at the center of things, and it's really essential to have a relationship here, and to have wisdom here, and to have practices here and tools here and that sort of thing. So I one of the things that I'm kind of excited about with this particular set of circumstances, and this collective pause and this collective invitation that we have, is some people who may have been circulating around the edges to come on in. I would want to put out a formal invitation if you're one of those people who's been, kind of curious and not quite, stepped into that space, to use this time to really explore it and find out for yourself how it feels to be in a different energetic relationship with yourself, and to find new tools and new information. And I would invite you to join me, and I'm sure Robin would invite you to join her, and all of us. Yeah. We're all, working together in the same goal and to the same end, to connect to our light, to connect to our essence, and to share it with the world in whatever creative expression you feel called to do. And for me, I want to facilitate and support people on that journey to stay connected to that goal and that mission, no matter what is happening in the crazy external sort of reality. And it can be a sanctuary for your sanity to sort of dive into that and get truly involved in that.
Right. I think it's really, I want to acknowledge too people that are at home with their families, because this is also a lightning path for finishing karma or working through karma, and people that have their entire. I know I met a woman the other day in the store that had 6 generations living in one roof, and she said, and we don't have that much room, and they're all 6 generations. My daughter with her baby, and my parents and my grandparents, and so she was like freaking out with all of that, and I thought, well, what a karmic incubator here. This is like a pressure cooker, and it's like, get over it. Get through whatever you've got to get through. And those of us that are alone, like I live alone, you live alone, we have an opportunity to go deeper in ourselves, and then to bring those tools out to the world. So I think it's wonderful. Actually, to me, this is a wonderful time. I'm doing more painting, more inquiry, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, if everyone can hold what I call a perspective of purposefulness, and really truly come to whatever circumstances they're in, whoever they're isolated with, to see the divinity in that and the divine plan, that perhaps, there are issues and challenges that could arise and could be worked through successfully inside a commitment to being kind and being compassionate. And even when you're going to get your buttons are going to get pushed. You're going to feel triggered. You're going to want to, have your own space and push out on people. And just a practice of heart-centered kindness at this time, for everyone that we're connected to and isolated with. And I've seen it, and we talked about this before, that even going out and about, my experience, and I think you shared before too, that people are kind. People are being kind. People are being patient, because we are all in this, all around the world together, which is unprecedented. We've never been in a circumstance that has impacted every single person. And, some people more than others. And really, if we can trust that, okay, whatever is coming up for me, whatever edge I'm bumping up against that makes me uncomfortable, that's your sacred ground of growth. And the more you bring awareness and kindness and wisdom to navigate through that edge, the benefits will really be there waiting for you on the other side in that sacred practice. Just that alone is enough to help us all rise up kind of together.
I think we are in this together. And we all have to raise the way we raise boats is not through economic trickle down, but it's through spiritual lifting up, So like the whole idea of trickle down is, of course, been falsified forever. And then, but what we really have to do is lift everybody together. So, that's why I'm offering what I'm offering through the courses, and that's what you're offering too. That we're here to help people lift up their consciousness and their awareness to recognize their power. I mean, that's what I want to help people do, is empower them to recognize that they have the tools. If they use those tools, they can do great things. And they can do great things because then they'll be aligned with their purpose in a greater degree, and they'll be going to do that purpose rather than rather than think they're having to do one thing when there's something else calling them. So, so I see a lot of people like that. I had someone yesterday who, was running and doing what she thought was important, but actually her spirit is saying, oh, I really need you to rest right now. I really need you to get in touch with your heart. This, take the unemployment, take the time to just be with yourself, and then your directional shift, and that's what you need to be doing. So I think we're all being called to do that if we haven't already. So
yes, and I just want to debunk another myth. We don't have to hit rock bottom before we start.
Oh no, totally not. No. Start now, wherever you are.
Anytime, at any point, it's just a question of noticing. I'm not light or delighted about where I am. I'm not feeling on target, or I'm not feeling on path to really pay attention and notice those little subtle voices that can come along in an anxiety or a physical disturbance or a bellyache or a throat ache or some physical expression that we might want to pause and look at our choices, and we always have choices about the direction that we can go forward to, and we're here to shape the future, not have the future dictated and determined by any external experience. And I feel called to participate in that more than usual, like a strong calling to have my vote count and have my energy participate in the shaping of our collective future.
Right.
And for others who have, been on the path for a long time and have tools and skills and understanding about how to actually do that, how to imprint in the external material plane with our internal physical energy what we desire. and the direction that we want, things to go.
Well, I think another misnomer is that our desires don't matter, and that is really wrong. I mean, our desires actually are part of our God-given movement toward what we're here to do, and if and they can be aligned with the spirit flow that's moving through us, or they cannot be aligned. But I feel that whatever they are, they need to be acted out. They need to be moved through. They need to be worked on or worked with. And certainly we give up, like if we want to be famous Hollywood stars or whatever, and we don't make it after 20 years, say la vie. At least I had the experience of trying to be the actor, and I put myself in the position and the power, and now I'm doing something else, and all of those skills go with you, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a famous artist. Well, here I am in my 60s, and now I'm able to paint in the way that I've always wanted to, and nothing's stopping me. And I'm selling work, which is great. So, the call to do what you want to do, it may stay with you your whole life. It's still there. I mean, it has never been financially viable until recently for me. Now it's I'm making paintings and they're selling. I don't know why, but they are. So, God is gracious. Somehow I can't live on it, but I can still paint and still do the things I want to do. So I'm pretty excited about that possibility to keep, you have that desire to do that. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. Who knows where it'll take you and or how long it takes. I mean, it might take you a lot longer than you think. I never thought I'd be in my 60s before I had my own studio and was able to, afford to do this. But I'm doing it, and it feels really good to me, and I'm happy right here, so
Yeah.
I think we have to look at what how those desires are leading us, in my case, to images that are hopefully going to expand people's consciousness. That's so all the different disparate things I've been doing all these years are coming together now. And so the images are feeding into the work I'm doing with people and healing work, and so they're all laced together. So I think we have to follow our desires and keep going with them.
Yes, I agree, and I agree that it feels to me also like it's like a perfect storm. Like, oh, that's why I did that, and that's why I did that. So now I can offer this, and it's all been all these different paths. Like I learned to be a hypnotherapist, I learned to be a meditation teacher, I learned to be a yoga teacher, I learned to be a breathwork practitioner, and I do intuitive readings, and now they all come together in a session with a client. All of those tools and all of those skills, it's like, oh, that's why I did that. And I'm just opening up my artistic side. I'm hoping at some point to catch up with you and be able to make paintings.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about what you touched on with desire, and I know that a lot of our natural ways of being are judged or poo-pooed or told that we shouldn't, or we're wrong, or we're selfish, or we're greedy, or we're the whole bunch of things that we should or shouldn't do. But I feel like desire is a healthy expression of our internal masculine principle. And we want that to be alive because it sparks us up to take the action to manifest in the world the things that we want to manifest in the world. And I think that it's also important to have that balance with our feminine principle, which is more surrendered and allowing and listening to what is the world bringing to us, so those two things can marry together and not be in conflict. And so for me, one of the gifts of being on the path and doing the practices and acquiring the tools is that those two aspects, the feminine and the masculine principle internally within us, seem to be able to communicate and express themselves out in a balanced way. So we're not wonky or pushy, like I want, it has to be my way or the highway. And we're not all soft and surrendered and I can't have any input on what's going to happen. Finding that balance is a gift of being a practitioner and being on the path. And I feel like there are many side benefits that may not have been actively pursued by me. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what I was going to generate as benefits from being on the path, but that a lot of things come naturally. There are things that I did know and there are things that I did want. And I remember even when I was like 8 years old, kind of looking in the mirror and going, who's that? That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me. I'm like this whole other thing. And then the question of, well, who am I? Who am I and what am I doing here? What is this all about anyway? Was a question that was there for me all the way through life. And I'm grateful for that question
Mm-hmm.
to be ruminating, because I feel like it was driving from underneath. Get on purpose, get on track. What are you doing here? What do you want to do here? What is this all about for you? And how do you want to participate in this adventure and this experience of life? Because here we are, and this is what we're doing. And so I'm grateful for that those questions and that energy arising for me from a very early age. And I encourage everyone, all my clients and people who get close to me, to really kind of look at that question. What are you doing here anyway? What are you up to?
Right. That's been a driving force in my life too, but mine came out of near-death experiences. I had 2 or 3 of them in a cluster, and it kind of like woke me up and said, hey, get on purpose. And that was, thank goodness, that was in my 17, 19, and 21. I had to focus on what it was I was here for, and it gave me the impetus and the movement toward my desires in the world, which were in art and continue to be in art even to this day. And I was able to contribute through being a curator and through shows that I did and all that for many years, 15 years, before I moved out here in California. And then since then, I've been focused on, how do I write books, and how do I support people through creating our own rituals or creating new ways. I think everything I've done in my life has been focused on helping at this transitional moment. The religious schools we all came out of, Lutheranism, Catholicism, whatever, they're broken down now, and they're fractured because of their own self-indulgence and self-interest. I mean, what they brought was, some of it was very good, but they had this dark underbelly that's all gotten exposed now. And so how do we create that for ourselves? How do we create a ritual for ourselves? We can do it. I had the thought at one point, well, who really ordained a priest? Another priest. So it's a boys' club, so why can't I ordain myself? And why can't I ordain somebody else? Yeah, and just be that person that does the ritual and creates the ritual. And I've done weddings and all kinds of other things, but what's great to me is like having that power of knowing that you can make a difference in your own family and with your own self. That makes a huge impact. Generationally, it can make just starting little traditions around meals even can be really helpful. So I'm feeling that we're at a really great time right now. And this is the time we came for, is to give these gifts back to the world.
And I'm feeling that really strongly. And, I just want to touch on what you said. And I feel like one of the things that I love the most about doing this work is seeing someone shift and flourish inside their own thought process or inside their own emotions. People have said to me, I didn't even know I could change my thoughts. I didn't know I could do that. And that, just being able to notice a thought and stop a thought and change it has been life-changing for me. And I know you get a lot of feedback and a lot of gratitude from your clients too. And that for me has been so nourishing and heartwarming and motivating for me to continue down this path, to know that I can teach the smallest thing and it can have the biggest impact. It can be life-changing on individuals' paths, and that's what keeps me engaged and motivated to keep doing it. I actually feel like I've gone through this before, meaning in other lifetimes, where this particular thing that we're experiencing right now, I feel like I've seen fear cause massive harm. And that's why I am feeling really called at this time to not allow that to happen, to step in and say, no, here's what you can do with fear, and here is how you can meet it, and here is how you can navigate through it so that it doesn't cause harm to you or anyone else around you. So I feel passionate.
And dissolve it. I mean, because the fear will dissolve in the face of love. It will disappear.
Exactly.
It transmutes. And I love Winston Churchill, and the greatest thing we have to fear is fear itself. I mean, that was the line of our century to me.
It's true. Yeah. Yes.
And so we have to remember Winston.
Let's remember Winston, since I am English and we are in a battle. So yes, we will remember Winston at the time. But I really do feel strongly about this time, and this time being critical, and the choices that we make at this time are really important, especially around fear, anxiety, anger, agitation, all of the lower vibrations. We can dissolve them. Robin and I both have tools and skills that we would love to share with you in the various different ways that we share, and help us all rise together. I don't know if there's anything that you want to say to complete today.
No,
you feel
just
complete?
That I feel complete, and I feel that we all can help each other. So we're here to help others, and that's what we're doing together too. So
yes.
Yeah.
So namaste.
Namaste. Great to talk
to you.
Thank you.